Hello and welcome back to the Surfer's Library, proudly presented by Hillsborough Surf Club. I'm Billy Jack, your guide through the pages of surf history, culture, and legends. Today I'm going to be reading from an incredible book by Francine Park Palama. It is a collection of stories by the legendary surfer Conrad Canha. The title of the book is The Last of the Golden Years in Surfing, Stories Told by Waterman Conrad Louis Canha by Francine Park Palama. Forward. To Conrad and Franny. I'm proud to do the warm-up to a book that tells the story of a great Hawaiian waterman, Conrad Louis Canha. He is not only a champion surfer, canoe paddler, and fisherman, but also a decent, noble keiki hano o ka'aina o Hawaii. Whenever and wherever Conrad goes, you have got to know that everyone there is having a good time. So let's hit it. Aloha to all of those who are no longer with us. The story begins. Meke aloha pumahana. Kimo Hollinger. Introduction. It was summer 2003. An early swell rolled up at Queens, and the Dawn Patrol pack was up and ready. The sets rolled in 4 to 6 feet and glassy. I got a few before coming into shore when I saw canoe captain Uncle Clay pacing back and forth. I asked him, "Hey, Uncle Clay, what's up?" He said, "Oh, I like go visit my brother down in Punalu'u. But I know more one Kavila." "Hey, Uncle, no problem. We'll get you and Ani at your apartment and head out to Gulick Delicatessen, get some okazu, and take with us." As we headed north on Likelike Highway, I asked Uncle Clay, "What's your brother's name?" He replied, "Conrad," and I asked, "Conrad who?" "Conrad Canha." "What the OMG, no way." As a kid surfing in Waikiki back in the late 50s, early 60s, he was Mr. Ala Moana. He was our hero and legend to us young and upcoming surfers. We only heard stories from the old-time surfers and beach boys about how Conrad caught some of the big waves at Ala Moana Bowls, Kunas, and Makaha, but none of us had met him. The ride to Punalu'u and our conversation, more like my chatterbox wanting to know all about Conrad. How old is he? What is he doing now? Does he still surf? Is he married? Does he have any kids who surf? Wow, that was off the chart. Soon we were pulling onto the driveway of his home. Before I even got out, I saw him sitting at the picnic table with surf shorts, no shirt, and a can of Bud in his hand. I was so stoked, and honestly, for that moment, I was numb. Uncle Clay walked over and hugged him. As he introduced us, Conrad gave us a hug. He was so happy to see Uncle Clay. They started talking story about everything and anything. It began with the days at the 2-story apartment on Prince Edwards to 318 Wainani Way in Waikiki. They were laughing and joking around. He shared his stories on how he became a Waikiki beach boy, to working on the movie sets as a Teamster driver, to winning the 1956 Makaha International Surfing Competition, and then becoming the world surfing champion in Peru. Conrad pretty much wanted to tell his story and even write it down in a book to let everyone know about the golden years of Waikiki. Not knowing any better, I offered to help Conrad write his book, and so began this awesome journey with my legend and hero. From Madeira to Hawaii. In 1878, people from Portugal began migrating to Hawaii to work in the sugar plantations. This was the same crop they were accustomed to back in their country. Between 1878 and 1887, more than 3,300 Portuguese men came on ships from the Madeira Islands, and then 2 years later from the Azores. They arrived in Hawaii on the SS Stirlingshire, SS Bordeaux, SS Hansa, and others. Many of the men brought their wives and children or traveled alone. During these years, there were about 10,700 Portuguese immigrants who came to Hawaii to find opportunities and where many would stay in the islands. Plantation days at Pu'unene. Born on March 1st, 1932, Conrad Louis Canha was premature at birth. The nurse attending to his mother's needs at the plantation hospital shared a story of her son to Conrad's mother. My mom always told me this story and how I got my name Conrad. The nurse who helped my mom at the hospital had lost her son during childbirth. So after hearing her story, my mom told her that she would name her son Conrad. That's how it happened, and that's how I got my name. Conrad's grandfather, Joseph Canha, was born on the Madeira Islands off the coast of Portugal and came to Hawaii with his parents. His son, Louis Joseph Canha, married Rose Dude Ventura from Maui, and together they had 4 children. Conrad, the oldest son, and his sisters Josephine and Mildred, followed by baby brother Timmy. His father would share the stories as a young cowboy in Makaha. Louis would tell the stories to the family of what it was like during those dark days without any streetlights in Waianae. Conrad remembers, when my dad and his friends went to Honolulu, they would take the train from Waianae. Sometimes it would be dark already when they were coming home. It was really dark because there was no streetlights. So they would follow the white coral stones along the railroad track to get home. They saw a lot of strange things happening in Waianae, like spirits or ghosts. In the early 1900s, Conrad's parents moved to Maui, where Louis worked in the Pu'unene sugar mill plantation as a machine operator. My dad worked hard, and it was a tough life, said Conrad. We lived in the Portuguese Camp 3. They had a Hawaiian camp, Japanese camp, Borinqui, or Puerto Rican camp, Filipino camp, and the Haole Caucasian camp on the hill. They had the swimming pool, theater, and the meat market up there. Everybody worked together, but when they went back home, they would return to their own camp. But as kids in the camp, we all went to school together. You know, the Hawaiian, Japanese, Chinese, Filipino, Borinqui, Haole, and everybody. All us kids shared our lunches because it was all different. You know, we give the rainbow to the world, all different nationalities in one place, and the Haole, the boss. Got some really mean stories about camp life, like on Sundays when my dad would only talk about it when he would have a few beers. Really sad. You know, on Sundays, everybody either go to church or stay home. No can go out. When the Luna or boss came around on the horse, they would check your house to make sure you're home, not gambling or making home booze. That was the Luna's job. If they caught you, it was doom day. You no can be better than them. In the 1930s, growing up on the plantation as a kid, Conrad and his friends had no toys like they have today. They created their games like picking up beans and making bean bags, playing hide and seek, or chasing each other around the neighborhood. However, Conrad's dad, Louis, would make some very special toys for him. Hey, you know, I had the fastest horse on the block. It looked like an Appaloosa, black and white, because my dad painted him that color. He even had a red broom handle. I would run all around and have so much fun. Many of Conrad's friends all played together, but there was one special Christmas that Conrad remembered about his dad making a toy. I was around 6 or 7 years old when we used to save cans of syrup. I never know why, but my dad said, "Hey, save them, okay?" You know, my dad made me my own crane with crank and string and everything. That's the kind of toys we had before. You know, you make your own. No more money for buy toys. During World War I, victory gardens or war gardens for defense were planted at private residences and public parks throughout the U.S., and Pu'unene was no different. Everybody had a victory garden because of the war, said Conrad. We had avocado, fig, and mango trees. We even made our own ice cream with lots of ice and salt. As kids, we never knew how simple our life was. In fact, us kids knew when we was hungry. The old folks tell you, "Hey boy, go eat avocado." You know, I was avocadoed out because I was eating avocado ever since I was born. Every house had one avocado tree. While growing up on the sugar plantation, Conrad could be seen running home by his mom, grandma, and aunties because he was born with blonde hair. So from the top of the bushes, they could see him running home and at times even smell him coming home. Life on the plantation was hard and everybody worked hard. Parents were strict and disciplined their children as they saw fit. No matter how tough it was with their parents, a child would never answer back. I remember there was this one time that I yelled at my dad, reflected Conrad. One day my father came home from work and I didn't do my chores. He was so mad and was yelling and everything that I went all back at him. You know, no can answer back because he tied my friggin' hands behind my back and hanged me up by my toes. I wasn't touching the ground, I mean it. Then he got some chili peppers and put it all over my mouth. I never, Never ever went answer him back again. My lip went swell up, and I was sore all over. Nobody came help me, and I went learn my lesson. Shit, that was the good old days. You know, everybody had chili pepper plants in their victory garden. Today, you get arrested and thrown in jail, but during the plantation days, no mercy. In the Hawaiian Islands, the sugar plantations brought many people from other countries together. They lived and worked in the plantation while their children were schooled and played daily. After school, the children would make sure they did their chores before their parents came home from work. They all had chores, and Conrad was no different. He fed the rabbits. My dad made sure that I fed the rabbits with milkweed, said Conrad. The weeds stay all over the cane field near the ditches where the water was used for the cane. Sometimes I fed them potato leaves. One day I wanted to play, so I fed the rabbits tea leaves. My dad knew. When he asked me, "Hey boy, you went and feed the rabbits tea leaves?" I said, "No, I never." Oh boy, I got lickings from him. No can feed 'em tea leaves because their hair going to fall off. I never know that. The weather was mostly sunny, but sometimes rainy. The houses were simple with single wall construction and metal roofs. During the rainy season, it was cold and scary for the children. I remember there was a time that it was pouring rain and it was hitting the metal roof pretty hard, said Conrad. I was having breakfast in the kitchen and get the tin roof on our house. I asked my dad, "Hey, what is that noise?" He told me it was a hailstorm like small ice balls. Wow, that was the first time I heard that. While living in Portuguese camp, swimming was a pastime favorite for many of the children, including Conrad. Then the water would go to the Punawai streams, and that is where I used to swim. In the afternoon, I would go swim in the public pool where the coaches used to teach the guys from the university to swim. So this is where I saw Keo Nakama and Bill Smith, where his dad brought him from the ditches to try the swimming pool. Bill was hitting the side of the pool and the coaches would yell, "Hey Bill, open your eyes, the water is clean." Coach Sakamoto trained him and it was a lot of fun. Leaving Pu'unene for Honolulu City. Living in the sugar mill meant everybody knew everybody. The kids played and went to school together. There was much freedom for the kids, but their parents worked hard and long hours for little pay. Plantation work days would begin with the blowing of the whistle at 5 a.m. Workers would grab a quick breakfast and leave for work, which started at 6 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The steam whistle would blow once and then again at 8 p.m. That signaled lights out. The camp had a plantation store, theater, church, pool, and community center. Families shopped at the company store, but if they did not have the means to pay for their items, they could charge it at the store and later it would be deducted from their paycheck. I remember when my dad started to talk about leaving the plantation life, said Conrad. He could see everybody owing their lives to the plantation store. So he and my mom decided to get out of camp life. There were many other families moving out to the other islands. We did too. My dad didn't want to raise his family in the plantation way. So my dad and mom were getting me and my younger sisters, Mildred and Josephine, ready to leave the island. My parents made all the arrangements when World War II broke out and was told that we couldn't travel for a month, so we waited until it was okay. Moving to Hala Drive, Honolulu. Conrad and his family waited a month in Pu'unene before Louis, Rose, and their children, Conrad, Mildred, and Josephine, finally boarded the Humu'ula and traveled to Oahu. Conrad's father rented a home on Hala Drive, just below the Kamehameha School's campus. Since the war, every household on Hawaii was required to paint their windows with black paint to prevent any light emanating at night. If lights in your home could be seen at night, the civil defense volunteers would inform you to paint the windows with black paint. During this time, school officials issued gas masks to the children. Hey, we had to carry our gas masks to Lanakila School. My dad worked at the army base right at Kalihi and School Street. He used to walk to work from our house on Hala Drive. He was so smart because he got us one house by his workplace and no need one car. Me and my sisters walked every day to Lanakila Elementary School from our house where we take a shortcut. We even had 6 mango trees in our yard, and I had to pick up every mango and leaf on the ground. I hated cleaning the yard during mango season. The Lucky Dragon. The Kanha's move to Honolulu was far different from their life on the Pu'uneni sugar plantation. Many of Conrad's friends played at the park and went to the movies. There was a very special cartoon that was at the movies that a number of Conrad's friends had gone to see. One day, Conrad had permission from his parents to take his sister Mildred to the Liliha Theater to watch the cartoon movie, The Lucky Dragon. "We were so excited," said Conrad. "When Mom and Dad let me and my sister go to the Liliha Theater, they told me, 'You make sure you watch your sister and get home early.' Well, the movie was so good that we stayed to watch The Lucky Dragon again. Shit. By the time we got out of the movie house, it was dark. Me and Mildred held on to each other as we walked home. Oh boy, talk about getting my ass kicked in again. My mom was really worried, but my dad, he was so pissed off that I got a good licking from him. I never ever gonna forget that movie, The Lucky Dragon." Moving again to Mo'iliili. After living at Hala Drive for a few years, Conrad's dad looked at moving again. This time, it would be to their own place on Kapa'akea Lane in Mo'iliili, next to Mo'iliili Hongkouai Mission. Their neighbors were predominantly Japanese with a few Hawaiian Chinese families. There was a dirt road known as the University Extension, and the kids went to Kohio Elementary School, where Conrad joined the Boy Scouts. The group had gone camping for a week at Hanama Bay, where they fished, made campfires, and hiked up the mountain. Mutu and Conrad. At Lanakila Elementary School, Conrad met a young Hawaiian Chinese boy, Motu Kali, who was full of curiosity, mischief, and surprises. They were best friends and had a lot of fun growing up in Mo'iliili. Conrad remembers, maybe 1947 or 48, we would go to Cromwell's, me and Mutu. We would go down where Doris Duke lived and go body surfing, fishing, and swimming with Brash, Fingers, and some of our friends. One day, Mutu tells me that he has a couple of plank surfboards down at Public Bath in Waikiki. He asked me, "Hey, you like try surf?" "Sure, I go try." So Mutu, he get his surfboard out in the water and he put me on it. This was my first time surfing. What Mutu didn't tell me was no jump or dive off the board. The tide was low and I was trying to stand up for the first time. I caught this one wave all the way inside and dove off the board into the water. More like on the reef. Oh boy, I ripped open my nose. A lifeguard came to get me and called an ambulance. They took me to Queen's Hospital and Dr. Felix operated on me. They gave me ether, but I didn't pass out. I felt every frickin' stitch and was screaming like a maniac. That was it for surfing. I went back to raising my goldfishes. I spent the whole summer with them in Mo'iliili and stayed home for a while, but that didn't stop me and Mutu from getting into more mischief. Mischievous Mutu and Conrad. I remembered when me and Mutu got into the laundry place at Kapahulu. There were all kinds of clothes and costumes, but we saw some chamois coats. That was the fad at the time. We had good fun. We even went to the Bond dance in Macaulay. There were a lot of people, food, and dancing. Because we didn't have shoes, we would go look for shoes. The Japanese folks get plenty of shoes at their houses, so we would go try them on, and if fit, we wear them home. Then we would cut them up and make sandals. What a riot. Everybody in Mo'iliili played basketball but me. Every time I came to the courts, only the Japanese kids stayed playing, and nobody asked me to play with them. So after 2 years of getting to know me, they finally asked me to play basketball with them. That's how it was with them. The Hawaiian family. The Naoli family lived on the hill where the Humane Society is located today. On the weekends, they would pack up food, the kids, and take Conrad with them to Nanakuli where they visited family. In those days, there were no highways or shortcuts. Mr. Naoli took the long way, the only way to Nanakuli. Well, we would leave early in the morning and sometimes I would sleep over, said Conrad. The ride down to Nanakuli was long. We passed a few houses and then go through the Waipahu and saw a lot of sugarcane fields. No had the highways like today. We would pass Kamokila, Campbell's Place to get to Nanakuli. When we go there, us kids would go swimming and go fishing to catch fish for dinner. Sometimes we'd get fish for breakfast. Back then, we didn't have bright streetlights like today. Only get small light bulbs. At night, we would go to the movies in the back of the Nanakuli store for 5 cents. All us kids would sit on the wall and watch the movies with the cows and animals in the kiawe bush. They would be behind the screen. That was our open theater. What a blast. School, education, surfing. After Lanakila Elementary School, Conrad attended Kuhio Elementary School, and on the third day or so, there was a bully who would go after the younger kids and steal their lunch money. Conrad didn't like the bullying just because other kids weren't strong or were too small. For me, I no like bully, so I went up to him one day and I just beat the crap out of him. Wow, that was it, and he never pick on any of the small kids anymore. In the late 40s, University Avenue was a dirt road with lots of bushes. The only paved road was near the fire station. The kids growing up there took shortcuts to where Conrad would walk to Washington Intermediate School. There he met the same bully from Kuhio Elementary School. This time he found out the bully's name was Palut from Kaka'ako. Palut called out Conrad. They started arguing, and after Palut found out who Conrad was, he had a lot of respect for him, and they all became good friends. At Washington Intermediate, Conrad was on the diving team as a lowboard diver. Since McKinley High School didn't have a lowboard diver, the coach invited Conrad to participate in the diving meet, but Conrad refused to show up. After the fourth time or so, the coach called Conrad into the office and asked him why he didn't show up. Conrad said he had gone to the beach. The coach was so upset with Conrad, knowing that if Conrad had shown up, they would have won the meet. So Conrad quit the team. Back in Maui, Conrad would like to dive, and Sakamoto would encourage him to go on the diving board and showed him a few moves. While I was growing up in Moiliili, I would play for the Barefoot Football League, remembers Conrad. The guys weighed around 120, 130 pounds. They were big fellas, like Chenning and Tin Roof, who were from the piggery farm. The small guys and kids would come out with their dads. What's so funny is that we would use these helmets, that when it rained you could fold them because they were made out of newspaper. So playing football came naturally to Conrad, so much so that he went on to play for McKinley High School. I had signed up for the football team and showed up in the early mornings when it was cool. But when the coach told us to come back in the afternoon, I said, bullshit. So I quit the team and quit going to school. I ended up at Waikiki Beach with the old timers. This is when I began to surf heavy, paddle canoe heavy, and dive heavy. I never looked back. Those were the good old days, sighed Conrad. Hanging out at Waikiki Beach, Halekulani. In the 40s and 50s, Waikiki's landscape was filled with small 1- and 2-bedroom bungalows or cottages and a few hotels. In 1901, the first hotel was built in Waikiki, the Moana Hotel. Later, the Royal Hawaiian Hotel was built, eventually becoming the famous Pink Palace. Many visitors also stayed at the Princess Kailani, the Halekulani Hotel, and the Waikiki Biltmore. Two-way traffic ran on both the roadways of Kalakaua Avenue and the Alawai Boulevard. Servicemen and women filled the dance rooms of the hotels when they stopped over in Honolulu to rest and recuperate from the war. There were many parties going on, and the Waikiki Beach Boys were at the center of it all. I was the only one in my family that loved the ocean, said Conrad. So when I quit school, my dad said, "Hey son, no shame the family name and bring home some fish sometime." I started going down to Gray's Beach where the new Edgewater Hotel was being built. There was a beach stand next to the new hotel where Caroline and Splash Lyons hired the Beach Boys who hung around their stand, like Alex who stayed until he retired. I met King Surf Guys and Kenny Sasaki, who was the night manager at the Halekulani Hotel. During the day, Kenny and Ralph were the waterman instructors for the hotel. They would entertain the visitors and take them on canoe rides and give them surfing lessons. He introduced me to many of the other Beach Boys who were working down at Haleao, like Blackout Whaley, Rabbit, Old Man Blue, Steamboat, Turkey Love, Panama Dave, Chick Daniels, and Sam Kahanamoku. These were the heavy hitters, so they stayed down in Waikiki. From plank to skeg. Kenny Sasaki and the boys stayed at Gray's Beach near the old Halekulani Hotel. While there, they would go fishing, diving, surfing, and canoeing. Kenny would take Conrad out with him to teach him all the things about the ocean. You know, I love the ocean and fishing, and Kenny would take me out fishing. Every year, the school of kala would come from public bath along the natatorium wall until they hit the channel and to outrigger. This is where Kenny would take me fishing for helmet shells in the sandy area between Populars and canoes. One day I went fishing with Kenny and Afuk out at Populars. It was a good day and we swam out with our goggles and one-pronged spears. While I was underwater, I heard these loud noises, like horses running. I looked and saw a school of kala, and the leader was big. He had several streamers of color going across his tail that looked like the rainbow when the sun rays was going through the water. He was leading the whole school. That happened every day because there was a lot of limu for them to eat. Wow, what a sight. Kenny Sasaki took Conrad under his wing and mentored him from the fishing to canoe paddling. But Conrad's love of surfing continued with his redwood plank board that didn't have a skeg. He used his hands and foot as a rudder to guide his board. But one day, it was first break out at canoes with the hollows outside and all the brothers. They watched this one haole guy catching wave after wave. Conrad pedaled near the haole and heard the locals asking him what kind of board he was surfing. He said a balsa board, and then he turned the board over. It had a skeg on the back of the board. It was an aha moment for Conrad. This haole was Johnny Sheffield from the movie Tarzan. Becoming a Waikiki beach boy. Even though Conrad didn't have his own board, he would borrow a board to practice and practice and practice. He would be in the water long hours at Waikiki, Ala Moana, tennis courts, and all over the South Shore. At times, he and the boys would get hungry, so they would take their boards and place them in the 3 drainage outlets so nobody could see them and steal their boards. They would then call out to all the military personnel and say, "Toss a coin, Mac?" The soldiers would toss coins to them while they would dive to retrieve them and then eat at the Blue Ocean Grill. During those days, the beach was all open without any rock walls like there are today, and at high surf, the water would overflow onto Kalakaua Avenue. King Surf was the name of the club where Kenny, Conrad, and others used to hang out. They sometimes even lived in the lifeguard stands at Ala Moana Beach Park next to San Pan Inn. Guys like Afuk, Red Bear, Ernstberg, Hiram Goldstein, and Kenny surfed at tennis courts and were from Kaka'ako. They were the coin divers at Aloha Tower, Alawai Bridge, and other places. Back then, everyone had their own hangout area and never bothered each other. They respected each other with aloha. You know, says Conrad, to become a beach boy is how much the old-timers knew about you before you became one. They go on to choose you because of your attitude and character. You had to be really special. So when I was taught how to be a beach boy, I learned from King Surf and Ah Fook, them guys. They go and check you out and how you act with the tourists and not be radical when you're out in the water and on the shore. They made sure that you were helpful, kind, gentle, and lots of aloha. So before we went to surf, an old-timer would come out with you. No one can surf when the old-timers are out there surfing. But when Kenny took me out and introduced me to Steamboat and the old-time beach boys, Kenny told him, "This is going to be the next beach boy, the next generation of beach boys." I was accepted from the old-timer Steamboat. So now I can stay with them on the canoe and surf with them because they already accepted me. The future of the Beach Boys was not about your father being a beach boy, so you automatically became one. These upcoming young men needed to pass the test from the old-timers. They made sure you were in school and not in Waikiki surfing. If you were out there surfing with them, they would tell you to paddle back to shore where they escorted you, took your shorts, threw them up in the trees, and kick your ass. Many aspired to follow the old-timers in their lifestyle, hopefully getting chosen, pass the test, and be able to go surfing, canoeing, and fishing with them. You know, back then, we were called garuts, said Conrad. We carried surfboards, run out and get things for the old-timers, whatever they wanted. They also trained us to become senior lifeguards. We had uniforms with shirts and shorts. Old man David Nueva taught some of us martial arts on the beach. He started the Black Shorts Gang in Waikiki. The arrival of the co-eds. Many visitors from around the world came to Waikiki, and so did women college students. They stayed at the Edgewater Hotel bungalows and were the favorites of the Waikiki Beach Boys. The boys taught them surfing, took them on canoe rides, and put on their best hospitality and aloha for them while playing Hawaiian music, singing, and dancing. Every summer, the Beach Boys looked forward to seeing them. Ah, many of them never made it back to the mainland to go back to school, laughs Conrad. They would come down to the beach in the afternoon with their brown paper bag and sit down at the beach with their drinks, gobos, the quart size. They would come every summer to party and just enjoy. The guys from Haliau to Halekulani would sing and play music. You know, quack, quack. That's Don Ho. He was working at the Halekulani Hotel after he got out of the service and was the manager where Kenny worked with him. We always had one big ho'olaulea every time the co-eds came to Waikiki. Many of the brothers ended up marrying them like Joe and Marty. Some of the Beach Boys learned different types of dances and how to entertain to impress their co-eds. One of them was a guy named Sour Poi. Oh boy, I tell you about Sour Poi, laughs Conrad. This guy would learn how to do the knife dance and walking on hot, fiery rocks. So every Thursday night, Old Man David and the locals danced and sing Hawaiian songs. They would then sing along and teach the tourists how to play the ukulele. One night, he made a pit with fiery rocks for Sour Poi to do his act. Everybody came singing Hawaiian songs and everything. They lit up the stones and Sour Poi was getting ready to walk across the hot stones. With the very first step, he was cool, but the second and the third steps, aoi. By then, he was yelling the famous Hawaiian word, aoi, aoi, aoi. They called the ambulance and took him to the hospital, and the next day he had bandages wrapped all over his feet and walking with crutches. What a blast in the ass. He had his nerve for come back to the beach. From then on, every time a new group arrived in Hawaii from the Matson liners, they'd show up down at the Edgewater Hotel. We would be singing Hawaiian songs, playing the ukulele, and everyone was blessed with aloha. Well, thank you for listening along. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Until next time, keep your stoke high and your bottom turns tight, and I'll see you in the lineup.